Hi, this is Randall here in Texas.
And I'm Matt, here in Michigan. Today, Randall and I are taking a look at a series that we already did a mini review of the first part of the series. Today, Randall and I are taking a look at The Bad Batch. It's streaming currently on Disney Plus and is the latest Star Wars show created by Dave Filoni. You know, Mandalorian, Rebels, and Clone Wars, which this is a spin off of. The Bad Batch takes a look at a group of enhanced clones searching for their place as the Republic turns into the Galactic Empire. They welcome a new person to their group named Omega, who helps them learn more about themselves and their priorities. This series contains 16 episodes and it has received generally favorable reviews from critics and audiences. Randall, I'm going to ask you about it a little bit first, but before we get there, if you like this review, be sure to like the video. Also hit subscribe and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. All right, Randall, I'll let you have first go at this series. What did you think of The Bad Batch?
I think there's a lot more good than there is bad in the season one of Bad Batch. It's entertaining, but it does potentially border on too many fluff episodes for me, or I don't say fluff, but maybe filler episodes that I wasn't exactly expecting to see. It's not that those episodes are bad. It's just that I have maybe been trained to want more story, and I didn't necessarily get all that. But overall, I'm fairly pleased with the first season. Matt, what are your thoughts on the first season?
Yeah, I generally liked the show. I do think this is another one of those shows that's aimed particularly at preteens, but I think there's enough like deeper lore Star Wars if like you're a longtime Star Wars fan that you're like, hey, I can catch up or kind of catch on to these little Easter eggs or whatever that they're building towards bigger things than other shows to kind of really keep interested. But generally, I thought it was pretty good. I agree with you about, some of like the story beats and stuff. I think this like pacing is a big part of this show for me. It's kind of, fast and slow, fast and slow. We have like our main storyline that we get to in parts, and then we have a bunch of other episodes that, aren't really more focused on driving like the story or like the plot. It's more focused on like just looking at like individual character developments or bringing in characters from other Star Wars properties.
So, in our season one review, I said, hey, it's pretty cool that Rex is the one who kind of talks to them and says, no, your inhibitor chips are dangerous. We need to get them out of out of your heads like immediately. I thought that he fit there. I thought that was a good spot for Rex. But in some of these filler episodes or kind of expanding the universe episodes, instead of expanding the universe, you're starting to make the universe seem kind of small. And what I mean by that is you start seeing other characters from Rebels, you start seeing other characters from Clone Wars, you start basically making these, the galaxy, which is supposed to be this big, huge thing, into a much smaller area. Like, what are the chances that it would just happen to be Cad Bane, of all of the bounty hunters in the galaxy? Nope, it's got to be this one that we're already with there, and that's for fan service. I think that they're at risk of making the galaxy seem a lot smaller instead of taking this chance and this opportunity to really blow the galaxy up and show just how big and diverse and character full this galaxy could be.
Oh yeah, I totally agree. But heck, I admit too, for fan service stuff, I think that's one of the moments that I was actually most excited for, and it's big fan service is what you mentioned, Cad Bane. When that reveal came out at the end of the episode, I was like so excited for the end of the episode. Other ones too, I would say that also makes more. We see one character, and guys, we are gonna get into a bit of spoilers and stuff. This so if you're planning on checking out on the Bad Batch and stuff, be sure to check it out and stuff before we go further. But there you go, there's your warning.
Solid spoiler warning 5 minutes into the video.
One of the other characters that I actually enjoyed for like the episodes were like the Hera episodes, even though we kind of hinted on her backstory and everything in Rebels, and I don't know that we necessarily needed to see this. They were actually like episodes that I enjoyed, even though those two episodes were, I don't think, really moved along the main plot, I guess, or the main story that you want to say.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. And that's what I was saying at the very beginning. The filler episodes aren't bad episodes generally. It's just that they don't do anything for the plot. They don't mean anything to our characters. And that's where they fall down, in my opinion. The Hera episodes are really good episodes, especially if you're a fan of Rebels and you want a little bit more filling in of what happens with Hera's family that you didn't necessarily get. They're good. But the Bad Batch doesn't necessarily have anything to do with that other than random happenstance that someone's ordering weapons and they're the mercs that are delivering it for all intents and purposes. And I felt like that is one of those you just made the galaxy seem smaller moments. Like, what are the chances? The real chance that these characters would come together, in a galaxy this big. Very small.
Yeah, I agree. We've seen that kind of with, some of the other, I guess, animated shows too. I think we see that kind of like popping up with like Rebels too when we get, different characters or well-established characters just popping up. But one thing I was going to say, like going on with what the main story, what I see really the main story is talking about, the Bad Batch group and how they're kind of like separated from like Crosshair and that Crosshair is now part of the Empire and kind of hunting them as the Empire. That is kind of what I see as like the main story. The other storylines are kind of like woven off and kind of like, important, but I wouldn't say necessarily like the big thing. We're also looking at what we really like the transition from the Republic to the Empire, which we hit in different parts too. And, also we're kind of just looking at like, establishing Omega kind of thing and like her importance and backstory though. I don't know. What do you think about Omega?
I think that I get to eat my words from our first half of the season. I had said that, well, they're trying to make a force sensitive clone when it turns out she's very special simply because she's like the more pure genetic, information that they need for first generation clones because the genetic material from Jango Fett is degrading. I like her character much more in the second half than the first half where she was a damsel in distress way too much. But I agree. There's a lot that we don't know about Omega. There's a lot to still go on. And I specifically like the spot in the very last episode of the season where Tech is like, yeah, okay, now I get it. It's all making sense. Omega's older than all of us. She's been around longer than all of us. She just doesn't have any of the growth enhancement and the age enhancements. So, what you get introduced to is a child, but in reality, she's actually much smarter and skillful than you think. She's just physically not there.
And I think really, I mean, she might not be, force sensitive or anything. At least that's what we're looking at. We're not force sensitive. But honestly, really, I think the idea that she is a big part of maybe having force sensitive clothes down the line, I think could still be a part of Star Wars and stuff. And I think it's a little bit different between like what the Kaminoans want and what the Empire wants. That's another one of those, big story subplots. If you're really into that, you're probably liking this. Is that thing of like, transitioning stuff from like clones to like stormtroopers, which I thought we were gonna get like a definitive answer or view of that in this. I mean, I guess we do with the bombardment of Camino and stuff, but I don't so that we see like the finalized thing of, full TKs as opposed to just having clones and TKs mixed.
I saw one of those clickbait titled articles of The Bad Batch explains why stormtroopers are worse than clone troopers or clone troopers are better than stormtroopers. And I'm like, if your only reason for being better is that this one clone didn't teach them everything he knows, you're taking it too far. The reason that TKs aren't as good as clone troopers is simple. They weren't bred for it. They're Even though I think that the Emperor building, like the Empire building stuff, is too fast, and I mentioned that in our first half of the season. Everything's happening way too quick. This is not how these transition periods happen. Not this fast. I enjoy seeing it. I enjoy seeing that move towards the authoritarian galaxy, the authoritarian, of the Empire, and like they're subjecting worlds, and that people are like immediately saying, well, that's not right. This is not why we were fighting the Clone Wars. This is not what was the reason. Even the clones are like, hey, we stand for, a republic that doesn't exist anymore. Not just the Bad Batch. Other clones are starting to come to that. I like that element of the story quite a lot.
Yeah, I really like our, I guess when I say our main story, when I talk about like our clones and where they fit and stuff, to me, that really is like the strongest part is like the clones trying to figure out, like, hey, how do we fit in this world? And we get introduced to different clones that have different experience. Like, not just going from like the Bad Batch turning into like mercenaries and Crosshair, basically coming at the end and saying, Hunter, you were so short sighted. Like, and having that different view. But also, those other characters that we have, like Rex, he's a clone in a different situation. We have Gregor, which you mentioned, as kind of like training, the TKs and stuff, and how he's in this situation. I like that we're continuing on that thing from the Clone Wars where, like, hey, yes, they're clones, but they don't all make the same decisions and stuff. And I think this show does a good job expanding on that. I think it does a good job, and that's one of the things I like the most about this show.
I don't know if the show is willing to go here because, like you said, it's kind of geared towards like older people, but maybe it'll be more like Avatar, The Last Airbender, and maybe it will get into some dark spots. But there's millions of clones out there, if maybe not at this point, billions of clones out there, and I don't know that the show is going to get dark enough to actually show like a reaping of clones by the empire, because you would think in if there's this many of them, they don't all just continue to constantly work for the empire because they go off, they do their own things, they age out, etc. Will there be like a face off between the empire and the clones? I would love to see that, but I don't know that this show really wants to get into that dark of material either.
I'm kind of wondering if this season is kind of ending on what we're going to see. We might not see more. It may just be like, hey, the destruction of Camino is like the end of the clone program. I don't know. Maybe this be looking into more than it was actually there. You have the clone on the ship at the end, basically, reluctantly telling the commander that it's been done. Camino's been destroyed. And then the commander's kind of like, let's get, go to the rendezvous point. Are they rounding up these clones at these rendezvous point to basically end the clones or program?
I'm with you. I do not think you're looking too much into that at all. Like, it's obvious that the inflection in the clone's voice was on purpose. This was their home, like after they get out of battle or whenever they needed to go someplace to get, medical attention, they went to Kamito. This is where they were born. That's, to them, that was home. And the Empire basically just said, destroy it. Are we going to see the extermination of the clones, or are we just going to hear about it because showing it would be way too dark for a Disney Plus, you know, television show? But I want to see that. That's one of those extended storylines that would help, flesh out in between episode 3 and episode 4 for me. I would be I'd be down to see that. Why are there so few clones by the time of episode 4? Explain it to me, Disney.
I think a lot of it too. It'll be interesting to see if we pick up season 2 of the Bad Batch right where this left leaves off, or if we're gonna have a little bit of a gap. Like you said, like, is the extermination of clones or whatever happens to the clones, do they just age too quickly and just die out? Though we see some clones are left over in Return of the Jedi, so that's not it.
Yeah, I don't think they age out, but we'll see. I hope that we get something, or maybe they'll pull a Star Trek Voyager, because Randall has to sneak a Star Trek reference into a Star Wars conversation. It in Voyager they find out like the Maquis has all been wiped out by the Dominion, which happens during the Dominion War. So the Maquis members of Voyager are like, "Oh my god, everyone, all of our friends are gone." Maybe we get that. Maybe it's like an off-screen, they decimated the clones and we find out through other characters.
Yeah, maybe that is how we do or whatever. And if you want to talk about Star Trek, I guess this is kind of like off a bit too, but I was kind of thinking of like the clones because a lot of people bring up, well, okay, if Omega is, like a pure clone or whatever, why is she a girl when, Jango Fett was a boy kind of thing? And I was also thinking, like, all right, we could go Jurassic Park to say, well, we make all, the clones at Jurassic Park female kind of thing.
We control their chromosomes. It's really not that difficult. All vertebrate embryos are inherently female anyway. They just require an extra hormone given at the right developmental stage to make them male. We simply deny them that.
So in that instance, she could be, pure. So if you want to go the Jurassic Park route, I was also thinking of kind of like Star Trek with kind of like Picard when we have, like androids or whatever being like twins or whatever, where we have, and I was thinking like, well, maybe the cloning process, the two original clones, the Alpha and the Omega, if you want to say that, where we have Boba Fett and Omega, maybe that's how it goes. When the original cloning process comes out, you get a twin pair. You get a male and a female. Though I know, granted, Star Trek with androids, they're both females, but that was kind of what I was thinking about a little bit too with Star Trek.
Man, we have gone way off into speculation territory now. Yeah, Matt, we're going to steer this Star Cruiser back towards the topic at hand, the Bad Batch themselves and Crosshair. That's the storyline that at the end of the first half of the season, we thought, finally, they're going to get into that. And then they didn't get into it right away. But they definitely end with it. What did you think about their handling of the storyline?
I actually liked it. I think surface level, it may be leaving a little bit more wanting, but I think it answers, I don't want to say really answers questions. I think we kind of see where the characters are at, and I think it leaves open more for later on. And I think a big part of that has to deal with the inhibitor chip. Because I think this really changed a lot for me. Is it the inhibitor chip that caused Crosshair to do it? Though Crosshair says he removed his inhibitor chip, so it hasn't been the inhibitor chip all along, though I kind of question that as well. Me, I'm kind of wondering if it's more looking at like realizations, like Hunter realizing different stuff, and maybe it's just Crosshair not wanting to come to terms with the idea that not all of his actions are his kind of thing. So, yeah, I mean, I like that we present that, hey, we're different in different parts and that we don't need to be enemies, though I do think their ideas are conflicting, and I don't know that the two can actually, coexist. Maybe. We'll see. We'll see what goes in, but I think it puts at a pretty good spot and leaves it open for more expanding, I guess.
I think his inhibitor chip is still there. I really do. Because you do see him walk off and do like the holding his head thing for like the headache. I don't think that he knows it's still there. That part of his like adjustment, because you see early on that he's been adjusted further, quote unquote, he thinks it's been removed, but it really hasn't. That's my fan theory. I don't know that. You can take what happens in the series at heart when Hunter says he had it removed. Maybe he did. Okay. But furthermore, onto the story and my thoughts of it, what I really liked, what I loved was at the end, the questioning and the family bond that goes on there. They're both right. They're both like, hey, you tried to kill us, so we left without you. Crosshair replies like, did I have a choice? Did I have a real choice in the matter? Like, you start getting these questionings, and then you see Tech, who's like, well, Crosshair has always been this way. He's always been tough and hard and, non-conforming, basically. I like bringing up those character traits and those questions, and like maybe, like you said, they're just seeing it from these different perspectives. They literally just disagree, and Crosshair really is more pro-Empire, and it's not the inhibitor chip. Bringing all of that up and bringing it all to the surface, hopefully, is expanded on. And that's a storyline. That's kind of the main storyline. Them being brothers and them being, not just brothers in arms, but actual brothers in clone techniques and everything. That stuff is going to come back. It has to come back. I hope it comes back. I'm praying? I don't know. Wishing? That's the interesting stuff. Build on that.
I like that we do get that reflection, from Wrecker, even though it's short, like, basically like, hey, you're always our brother kind of thing, or I'm trying to think exactly what Wrecker said, but
he says you were welcome to come back and you didn't.
Yeah,
we would have accepted you.
But and also we get like we get Tech, and I think Tech was a big part too, where like Tech says, this is how Crosshair is kind of thing, and Crosshair is kind of like, I didn't, why are you sticking up for me kind of thing.
I am not. Understanding you does not mean that I agree with you.
So I think it's good that we actually see each of the characters, reflect on, on Crosshair and stuff, because this is a big part of the show is relationships and stuff too. So yes, I hope it gets expanded. I can't imagine it not being expanded out even more in season 2.
Yeah, and it just goes to show like that's the storyline that I was the most interested in, even though I still like the empire building stuff. I wanted them to get to that, and every time there was a filler episode, I'm like, God, it's just another episode. You're not talking about this relationships and like what's going on with Crosshair and what's going on with the Bad Batch, like as individuals. Nope, we're gonna get a Hair episode. It's good, but please let's get back on task.
I'll tell you a little bit for me of an episode that's kind of like, yeah, whatever. It also made me feel like a little bit younger audience too. Is the Rain Corps episode, like the Rain Corps Rescue episode. That's one of those for me didn't really do a whole lot with like the story. Granted, it's building up different things like their relationship with like their handler or whatever you want to say, and it also helps build, Omega a little bit, and her continuing to kind of like show to Hunter that she can handle herself, and that's why we, I guess, transition more from like the damsel in distress a little bit to Omega being a more capable, character and stuff, and someone that's willing to make sacrifices.
And Crosshair brings up a really good point too, although in a different, well-meaning way at the end, where he says, "Oh, if you really care about her, you'll let her go because you're bringing her to some of the most dangerous parts of the galaxy, And Hunter's like, "No, she goes with us because we're family." And it's like, well, you both have a point.
One thing I will say I really like about the show, this is probably like my big like last point, is I like that this isn't just another like, hey, let's show the start of the rebellion. We have a little bit that I guess with like Hera, and we see like reasons for the rebellion, but to me, I don't feel like the Bad Batch is supposed to be like Rebels was. Like, here's the creation of like the rebellion or rebellion cell. To me, the Bad Batch is just a group that's showing us the transition from the Republic to the Empire kind of thing. And I hope that the show kind of continues more of that, and as opposed to like, hey, let's just get more to like the rebellion stuff. I think that's good for Rebels to handle, and I hope that the Bad Batch sticks with more of this, learning more about the clones and like the relationship with the Empire.
Yeah, I hope that we don't I don't want to see the Bad Batch go into the rebellion very much. We've had shows for that. We've had other things. We have other medium with like the Obi-Wan show that's coming out, and the original trilogy is kind of enough. I want to see Bad Batch be expanded upon in a way that hopefully concentrates on the characters more than the stories. The tell the stories through the characters is I guess what I would hope going forward we see, instead of all these weird situational storylines that we end up seeing them in. Like, where are we going with these characters? What is the point? What's the end story for these characters? And season 2 should probably expand on that quite a bit, because season 1 left me wanting in that department.
Yeah, I agree. I kind of was wondering when we were going into the show, like, hey, is this going to be like a one season encapsulating story? Or is this going to be a season that feels like it sets up for more and a bigger show? I think it's definitely the latter. I do think that we're setting up for more of a bigger show than just like a, one story arc, one season thing that we have in this show.
But Matt, when Ahsoka shows up, you're going to be so happy.
Depends on how they do Ahsoka, if they do Ahsoka. But yes, I imagine that we are going to see, Ahsoka and like Rex kind of thing in this show. And you know what? I think we're going to eventually get Darth Vader in some form too. We'd had it in Rebels, so I think we're probably going to lead up to Darth Vader in some capacity in the show as well.
The thing about Bad Batch is if you follow to its logical conclusion, not necessarily Omega, because she's quite young, maybe these characters get Rogue One'd, They complete their mission, they do whatever they need to do, and and they die. You know, that's a thing that could happen. I don't know that a kids show is gonna go there, but it could. You follow it to the where were they during the rebellion? They're nowhere. Who knows?
Yeah, I think the show could go a lot of different places, and though I don't think it's the show that I'm most excited for of Star Wars or whatever, it's still a show that I'm plenty interested in, and I definitely want to see more of it. But, of course, we want to know what you guys think of The Bad Batch. Did you enjoy it? Let us know in the comments below. Also, be sure to check out some of our other reviews, especially our mid-season review of The Bad Batch. We also have other TV shows. We have new movie reviews, flashback movie reviews, and deeper dive discussions.
We also have a Facebook page. Make sure to check us out over there if you haven't already. We post the day before what's going to be coming up on YouTube the next day and tidbits from all of our fandoms. If you don't want to deal with Facebook, I understand. Just put us on your calendar. We post new videos every Monday and Thursday. For now, I'm Randall here in Texas. See everyone next time.
And I'm Matt here in Michigan. Have a good day, everyone. Next time on No Market Media. Please consider checking out some of our other videos.